Meanwhile, Shipra, if I take this opportunity to make the best of the time available with you. So with my current project, right, working into retail and in a product company. So the technical stories are always written on a very high level, as in there is a functional requirement for any feature to get added in the current software or to do any enhancement where data is involved. So when we talk about the UI UX changes, that will definitely not need any data to change its flow. But talking about any feature getting added in the current, SaaS or any software. So the technical, we used to we divide the stories in the front end and the back end. I mean, even it goes on the title, like front end, happy path, front end, error screens, front end, alternate path, and all. And also give the context to what I said, like the happy path and all. But the technical stories or the backend stories are written in like a two-liner that whenever given uh, a particular, purchase or any given transaction happens or a transaction is taking place, then the data should flow in the downstream system for the consuming system to process it further. I mean something on these lines. So as a business analyst or in business analyst domain, are we really restricted to just give this high level technical story, or should we go deep dive more here?
Yeah, so Supriya, let's first understand what are technical stories, right? So technical stories are kind of the stories which are non-functional in nature, right? So
Mhm.
this is something, as you mentioned, this is something which is not front end. This is something that is back end. Yeah. So behind the scenes
Correct.
that is happening. Plus,
Mhm.
technical stories are more or less aligned, aligned to the technical tasks, right? So
Mhm.
these are tasks that technical team needs to perform. So first of all, BA is definitely not the right person to write the technical stories. Some projects do expect BAs to write them and do detail these out. So at a certain level, BA can write them, but the detail level, BA cannot write it. Yeah, let's understand that on his own. He can, sit with the technical person and ask him, okay, what do you want me to write? And he can just type it and, maybe ask few questions. But
Mhm.
he is not supposed to write it. The example that you have taken, right? So data going to a downstream system. So that is
Mhm.
definitely a technical story because from front end UI, user will not be able to test it out whether the data has gone into the downstream system or not. Yeah. Uh, If the
Mhm.
user has access to the downstream system, then maybe yes, but not otherwise, right? So that's definitely a UI story because in your software, uh, something user does, like let's say save. The user is
Mhm.
saving something, and then the data should go to the downstream system. So you can definitely write your story. So as a user, when I save, I want I want to send data to my downstream. Maybe there is some reporting system or a data
Mhm.
platform or a data lake kind of a system, right? So as a user, I want my data to go to data platform on save, so that that data reflects in the reports that I generate out of that system. So that's a story which BA can write. But when it comes to the acceptance criteria, right? Again,
Mhm.
at a BA can only say, given user is logged in onto the system, when user saves a particular record, then the data should go to the downstream system. So at this stage, what can happen is BA may be expected to give the mappings. So I'm moving data from one system to another system. So they can say, you know, which field will go where, because my downstream system will definitely have a new set of columns and tables and the way data is being stored. So BA can be expected to help out in the mapping. So that level BA can do. But if uh, the story requires a connection to be made, so which URL the connection needs to be made, which parameters to be sent, which authentication factors needs to be kicked in, and such low level details BA will definitely not be aware, and BA will not be able to detail those out. So if a technical team member do want those details to be noted out, right? So sometimes developer says, you are writing this story, but you have not given us the URL, or you have not given us the parameters. We'll need that information, right? So in that case, you can involve a technical architect to help sort those out, right? Because of course you will not know uh, what 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 is a connection, what are the parameters, and so on and so forth, right? So what exactly is required. So technical
Correct.
stories are generally, as a practice, written at a high level, and not many details are entered into those because BAs are not aware of it. So maybe the technical team member can go in and enter those details in, but BAs usually it's not like they are not writing stories properly. They're they're not writing stories with full information because they can't, they don't have that
Mm-hmm.
level of understanding when it comes to technical stories. Yeah, so there is a different, one is not doing something and one is not being able to do something, right? So because they can't write the stories, because they don't understand the technicalities, so that's why the stories are mostly written if a BA is writing at a high level. If a technical person is writing, so let's say somehow you are able to convince project managers that BAs will not be involved in technical stories and technical team members will be writing those, then it's not like the story should not contain enough details. Technical team members should enter all the required details in the story. Yeah. uh, and make it a comprehensive enough document. But if you expect
Mm-hmm.
a who doesn't know these things to write the story, of course the details will be much less. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I have even seen that while writing technical stories, no particular format is even followed, because sometimes these stories are not even tested. Yeah, because if my
Correct. Yeah.
team does not have access to the downstream system, how can we
Mm-hmm.
test out whether the data has flowed there or not? So
Yeah, we cannot validate it. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, in certain scenarios, it will be very difficult to validate it. Now, Shipra, like, the example which we looked into was from a front end story, which, I mean, it had a connection to the front end story,
Mhm.
right? And with that said, whenever the going like back in the project initiation or like that particular understanding the requirement, when it has a technical aspect to it, there is a spike what we raise in the product backlog. So with that spike, the developer he actually goes deep dives into the requirement, understand the technical aspect of it, or like not majorly the functional, but what exactly needs to be done from his end or the software development end, and then he comes back and gives us a what was his finding, and from there we take it further. So with that said, and when we are not really validating first thing, it's not testable, and we are not really also giving more details. Uh, I mean, I'm not coming to a conclusion, but then I feel that that spike itself is giving much idea to the developer of what needs to be done. So in my opinion, the technical user stories going on the product backlog in the current project are only for pointing perspective, are only used from giving that velocity count or pointing that story just to fill up some metrics in the sprint. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, it could it could be definitely the case where the story has been added in just to note down how much effort the team will be working on. So you mentioned Spike, right? Spike is a type of a technical story. So when we say technical stories, we have seen two examples so far. So one is impact, downstream impacts kind of a story. Second, we are saying technical spikes, right? So spike is a research activity that needs to be carried out, and developer will be working on that spike during a particular sprint, and we need to log that time somewhere so that it doesn't it doesn't have a reduced velocity. So sometimes that type, the spikes are also added in as technical stories for sure. But what we have to be conscious is there is a very thin line between a technical user story and a technical task, right? So if we are saying that in order to do a particular story, I'm going to do this and this, right? So let's say I'm adding a new field to the UI. So what I'll be doing is I'll be adding the field in the UI. So that's one thing I'll be doing. Second thing is I'll be adding a column in the database. That's another thing. Third thing is I'm making the connection between the UI field and the column in the database. That's third thing I'm going to do. Fourth thing is maybe apply the validations or business rule or configure them on the system. So these are the steps I'll be doing to meet a particular story. If that's the case, then those are not technical stories, those are tasks, technical tasks. So we should not confuse between technical tasks and the technical stories, right? So technical stories are something that will demand a story point, and that then that those story points may be further divided into different research activities that the person is going to do for technical spikes, to in order to arrive at a particular conclusion. So yeah, definitely that is one more example of what a technical story might comprise of.
Yeah, and also like I came across a requirement when I was exploring the job market with a bank. So with like they wanted me to write a user story with a request response, like kind of structure. And whenever like there, I mean, with some banking domain, which I could not basically submit as well, but it was something related to APIs. And so talking about business analytics domain, a colleague, a friend basically works as a technical analyst. So she, writes such API user stories where given like, when a request code is this, then the response code should be that. Um, how do we actually, I mean, gain more insight here, or it should be totally absorbed whenever I'm in a project where such stories is a norm? And again, should we leverage the dev team support to write them?
Mhm. So Supriya, the example that you have given is basically the third type of technical story the person might or a BA might engage in, right? So this request or API response stories, yeah, these are basically related to integrations between two systems. So one is an example which we took earlier, where the data is flowing from one system to another system, right? So that's a kind of an integration only, where there's an integration between my system and the data platform system. Second example could be, so that's kind of a one way communication, right? One way integration. The second case could be two-way integration, where I am sending some data and in return I'm getting some other data. Yeah. So for example, I'll take an insurance example. So I'm sending my contract information to a pricing system, and in return I'm getting a premium out of the pricing system, right? Or I can say that I'm sending my customer information to one system, and that system is telling me whether this customer is a risky customer, or I can proceed with business on with this customer, right? So these are some
Mm-hmm.
basic examples. So when we are saying two-way communication, then these API structures are involved, and there is a request to get send the information, and then there is a response back from the other system. Now, here, what BA needs to, what requirements BA will be capturing. So we have, talked about integration requirements in detail. If you want, you can listen to our previous recordings. But
Sure.
let me just summarize it once again. Yeah. So one first thing that the BA will be talking, checking with the customer is when the integration should kick in. So at what stage I should send my data to the other system. It cannot happen that I'm still, filling up my data, and every time I'm filling up my data, the data is going to the other system. I may not require it, right? So every connection will put a strain on the system, will impact the performance of the system, right? It takes resources to integrate with another system. So we don't want to misuse it or overuse it, right? So when is a good time to send information from one system to another system? So what is the trigger? Yeah. Second thing that the BA will be saying is what information to be sent. I might be having 100 of fields of data captured. I'll be having some notes, I'll be having some comments, I'll be having some documents attached, or I have captured the basic data fields, I have captured different types of data. But do I really need to send everything to my other system? Maybe not, right? I may have to send few basic information, or out of 100, just 5 fields to the other system, and that's whatever connection I want to make, that is sufficient. So what will go in my request, or what information I need to send to the other system? The third thing I'll be talking about is what I'm going to get in return and how I'm going to use that information. So what other system will be giving me and where I'll be displaying that, or based on that value, what I'm going to update in my system or populate in my system, or maybe it could be very well some display in the screen. So that kind of thing, right? So it depends. The example that you took of your friend, she was writing the functional stories or these integration stories in a bit of technical nature. I won't say wrong, but she is writing them in technical. She is writing them technically. She could have very well written them functionally as well, right? So she could have said, given I am I'm in this role and I'm in the system, when I do this, so what is my trigger, right? When I do this, then so and so information should be sent to my third party system. Next criteria, given I have sent on doing so, so and so information has been sent to the third party system. When I receive so and so value from the other system back, then display that information in so and so field. Yeah. She could have given a functional aspect to the whole process, but she chose to write technically, so that the technical team can understand it. But if she wants to run through this story to the functional user, she might not be able to do so, because the way the statements have been structured. So it
Mm-hmm.
very well depend on the BA, how that BA is writing the stories. You can always write the stories functionally, even if they are technical in nature. Yeah. So you, from front end user perspective, he will not be aware that the data is going behind the scenes, right? But the output will definitely be visible to the user, isn't it? So instead of saying, get a response and populate so and so field, we can give a functional aspect to it, saying that once I have sent the data and I receive receive a value back, then show this. In case there is an error, do this, right? So again, the error
Mm-hmm.
handling part. So we'll show some error to the user in a pop-up, or on the screen, or something will happen, right? So that error can also be a functional aspect of the story. So it's
True.
all
Yeah.
depending on how BAs are writing it. But integration is something which I personally don't say is technical in nature. So there are three aspects, right? First aspect is trigger. The second is
Mm-hmm.
mapping, and the third is playing the response, right? So even if we put a technical word in front of all these stories, we can very well be as a BS involved in all the three aspects, because we have to tell when to make the connection between the two systems, or when is a good time to send the information. We as a PA are the better person than a technical team member
Mm-hmm.
to do the mappings of this information. So when we are saying this information will go, we should also be saying where, and that where is
Mm-hmm.
kind of a mapping with the technical, maybe XML or JSON or some file, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that technical mapping we can keep it in an Excel separately, and which we may not need to expose to the user, and until and unless we have serious doubts in it. And because that will need a lot of user training to users might not easily understand the JSON format or XML format.
Mm-hmm.
But behind the scenes we do have to keep a track. And I can, by looking at the fields from the in the JSON or XML, I'm a better place to do the mappings rather
Okay.
than some technical team member doing them directly. So mappings also BS can be involved in. It's all
Mm-hmm.
depend on how much BA wants to get involved. There can be a
Yeah.
case wherein we are saying, let's say we take back the first example where we are saying that, all the data needs to be sent to data platform so that it can be used for reporting purposes. In that case, either we get a data platform XML and we map our fields to that XML, because it's the whole set of data, right? Or what we can say is, we are giving you the whole data table or whole set of data from our end. You do the mapping and you decide which data you want to keep and which data you want to discard, right? So it's all depending upon the technical approach that has been agreed this between your system and the client system. So as a BA, we should be aware of what technical decisions have been taken across the around the approach of integration. It's always good to know that if you're finding it hard to understand from your technical solution approach document, then you can very well ask your technical architect to explain it to you in layman's terms. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I do see BAs getting involved in integration requirements, and it does make sense to me as well, even if they are technical in nature.
Yeah. So when you talk about the technical architecture, right? So we definitely, I mean, my team is very hesitant to, talk more about how the data is actually flowing from the front end to the back end, like the overall flow from the talking about the different stages, how it is going to be absorbed from one system to another. And then I was trying to convince them that, I mean, it would be good if you write that, but then they were like, okay, we know our job, or like, we know what you require, and we can definitely look more into it, but let's not start the process of writing it to that detail, because it's just going to consume more time in grooming them or pointing them. And maybe if there is a new resource who joins the team, then definitely it will overwhelm that resource. So with that said, I mean, then we're restricting just to the high level, or if the depending on the team culture, if they want it to be more in detail, and that if I, for example, if I talk about myself, if I get in a new project and then I can look at the project backlog, which are already been completed, any of the exam technical story example and how it is written. So yeah, I mean that can give me a good understanding of what exactly is required in this particular team structure, and I can take it further from there. But
Hmm.
somehow, like I was very much interested to understand, the technical aspect of it as well. But it again gets in conflict with the development team that they don't want to actually, handhold me and give me the entire life cycle of how the data is actually flowing from here and then how is it converting and all, because that doesn't, I understand that doesn't make any sense, but then I was just giving it a try.
Yeah. So it all depends upon how much team is comfortable, right? So it's all a team understanding of how we want to proceed. So uh, some some members will be like put each and every little detail into the story, right? So once there was a bug where where testing team said, okay, when I am tabbing out, it is skipping this field. So I'm in the previous field, I tabbed out, and this field which was being introduced in the story, it was being skipped, and it moved to the other fields, and there was a whole lot of debate around who should be owning this kind of requirement. So BAs were like, we can't put each and every little bit detail in the in our story, right? We just can't say that it should save, it should skip, it should be fit in the ordering structure. It should fit the consistency of the screen, or the labeled font should fit the consistency of the screen, right? So BAs were of view that we can't just do each and every little detail, but technical team was thinking otherwise, that if you not mention it in the story, it's definitely bound to get skipped, and then what should we do with such bugs? So but yeah, that's just an example of how much detail we want to capture.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely depends upon how much team want the stories to be elaborative. Having said that, I am a firm believer that my story should comprise of as much details as I can capture, right? Since
Mm-hmm.
if I'm aware of any detail, I should not skip writing that detail just because we have agreed that we'll be writing stories at a high level, if you see what I mean, right? So
Mm-hmm.
whatever I am aware of, it's possible that I am not aware of hundred of things. Then definitely, and the team doesn't want to go us digging each and every dirt out of it, right? So that's fine. I don't want to spend hours to find out all those 100 details. But if I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware of 5 details or 10 details, I should write them down for sure. I should not just say that, I should not have a mindset where I'm saying, just because it's a technical story, no one is going to test it. Why should I spend time on it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
at least I should know what the story is going to do. And, whatever I'm aware of, I should note it down at least. Yeah. And then maybe technical team will add in, further details, or they might, yeah, attach the technical solution document to it, or they might not even do that, and they might discuss and agree on the design internally and implement it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
yeah.
fine. But at least from BA perspective, whatever I know, I should note it down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And again, you know having an agreement with the team is very important, right? At any point in time, they should not see BA overstepping the BA boundaries, right? Plus,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, so it should not happen that technical team member is saying, "This is my job. Why you are digging further into it?"
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, I can say, will you be writing a technical solution approach document? If yes, can you give it to me? But I cannot dictate that, right? So at the same on vice versa side also, BAs should not be expected to write down the technicalities of it, right? BAs should not be expected to note down the table names. So, or
Mm-hmm.
BAs should not be expected to be aware of the table names which will be impacted, or or the modules which will be touched upon. So functionally I can write what I want, but I should not be writing table names in my stories. Yeah, if technical
True.
team wants to capture that level of information of connection URLs, table details, and other things, we can maybe arrive at an agreement that will capture those details in the history of the story, or in the comments section of the story, right? um, because my document is not purely a technical document, even if it is a technical story. um, this document will be exposed to client at some time for sure, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we are
Mm-hmm.
noting down the story points, and we are adding them to the velocity, so definitely it will be there in the client system as well. We won't be doing anything behind the scenes, isn't it? So my client will be reading it, and at any point in time, any BA, any QC member, any client, if they are reading the story should make sense. It should not be at such a high level that it's not making any sense, right? Or it's an ambiguous story, or it doesn't even define the scope of the story. So it should be clear enough, that even if 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line I'm reading the story, it should make sense to me. It should not happen that I am opening up the story and I don't even know what the story did, 6 months back, down the line, in the past.
Yeah. Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we, whatever you are briefing me, Shipra, we definitely follow the same protocol or like, way of working in our current project. But then I was a bit I mean, I wanted to understand, like, what are other people's approach or how do it functions in other organizations and in other projects. So
Mm.
yes, that was the only effort which I wanted to understand from here.
Yeah, so believe me, every organization, BAs are writing technical stories as well, even if they are not supposed to, but they are, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how project managers want, and they basically BAs are story custodians kind of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll
Mm-hmm.
be noting down what all work is out there. So project managers find it easy to reach out to BAs instead of technical team members, so that's why they also, want VAs to be involved even in the technical stories. And again, as I mentioned, they are different from technical tasks, right? So if it's purely a technical task, then you can say it's a technical task. The technical team member should log it. But when it comes to story, because that story will be somehow linked with the functional story for sure, or you
Yeah,
can
I mean the
definitely say it in making which makes sense.
yeah. So the technical tasks are like the developers are adding them as child stories, and then this the functional story or like any data flow story would be a parent story per se for that particular
Yeah.
task. So
Yeah.
that's how it is working.
Mhm.
Even like the design, for example, if there is a new functionality getting added, then the design task would be mapped under the functional story as a child story for the design team to the UI UX team to account their efforts.
Right.
And likewise, even the testing stories are then mapped to the test task to understand, okay, that particular test task is being taken care of by writing the test script or test case,
Mhm.
which also gives like, okay, so that is being taken care of.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's the need of the hour, right? So, but yeah, it's a you know it's important to make a balance out there, because each
Mm-hmm.
and every task or each and every story that we are jotting down, right, or splitting out, this that comes with an admin overhead of maintaining the status of the story, maintaining the story, in case there are any changes and so on and so forth. Maybe the attachment got outdated, you may have to attach the make the attachment again. So each and every task or each and every story, someone will need to go into the system, maybe update the hours or update the story points or update the documents, or make do the admin activity around it. So as a project team, we should discuss and agree on to what level of details we will be going in. So as I'm going back to the example I took in between. So I said, in if I'm introducing a field, I'll be writing a story. I'll be creating a task for the UI element. I'll be creating a task for the backend element, and I'll be creating a task for linking the two. Right. So, do we really want to capture three tasks with each story, or maybe we already have a functional story, so we'll drive off our testing and development from that story instead of creating new tasks or stories as a child section, right, and making each and every story under a lot of hierarchy. So what we are saying is we already have an epic. Under epic we have features. Under features we have
Yeah.
stories. And then in user stories, as a child item, I have testing stories, I have dev stories, and then those testing stories have their bugs associated, right? So you can see
Yeah.
it's six level of hierarchy to arrive at a bug, and it makes the entire process cumbersome. Yeah, it's better to have the bug associated with the user story and not go beyond four levels, because the more levels we introduce, uh, we are making our system further complex. While it may be ideal or it may looks like a good idea, but definitely it's going to take time of each and every person involved. and
Yeah, definitely.
it's
Mhm.
not a value delivering aspect, isn't it? So the idea of agile was to deliver value faster, but
Mhm.
and we are saying the focus should not be on documentation, but if we are using our tools to do a lot of documentation of each and every thing we are doing, so even if I'm writing a line, I'm documenting the time for it, then I'm defeating the purpose of the agile as a whole, isn't it?
Yeah,
Document
very
does
true.
not necessarily
So,
mean the BRDs and the FSDs, right? Document means to what extent we are noting down the things, isn't it?
mhm. Yeah, I was actually trying to put in an example of the Scrum Master. So it is hard. She gets hard task when she wants to start a new sprint because lots of, as you said, if there are multiple and multiple layers of tickets opened, which needs to be closed or give the exact status of that particular feature or user story, then she has to send a reminder to that whole team that please update and put the status in the correct form of your task, whatever you have opened, and that gives the real-time understanding of where the user story is.
Yeah, yeah. So again, the more things are there in your tracking tool, but more complex it becomes. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'll second that.
Yeah, looks like no one else has joined. There was a person
Yeah,
who
Chetan was
joined
trying.
meanwhile.
Yeah, Chetan was trying to join in. He sent me a request to become a speaker a couple of times, but we were not able to hear him. So I think he was facing some technical issues. So he might have given out
Okay.
after half an hour or so. So
Oh, okay.
but yeah, it was indeed a good discussion, and definitely. So when I picked up this topic, right?
Hmm.
So immediately I thought, what I'm going to talk about, because technical stories is there
Hmm.
is not much to talk about, right? So then I thought, okay, let's make it as an interactive session and let's make it as a question and answer session, wherein a person is asking a question and I'll try to answer those things. And I thought that I'll be conducting the session that way, and that's exactly how it went. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad too because it has, I mean, lots of unanswered questions or where I didn't really try to get some validation to my understanding. I'm in a better place, and now I will be following whatever is team culture or whatever is has been taken by other previous resources, how they are driving the product.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, even if the team then requires me to deep dive into the technical aspect, then more than happy. If it's not the same, then also I'm like, I was like thinking writing the functional stories is not the only aspect what I want to achieve here. I want to actually understand the entire life cycle of the requirement, starting from the need, then the business requirement, and then how does it actually transform from one from the functional to the technical side, and then comes to the uh, testing side. So I wanted to drive the entire life cycle. I
Yeah.
mean, that was my thought behind it somewhere. And yeah, I mean, I understand it better now. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So the more knowledge the BA has, right? Even if it's technical knowledge, so no knowledge goes to waste. The more knowledge you have, better decisions you make, and better inputs you provide. So I'll take an example, right? So there was a BA who was, I asked him to write a story. So it was a technical story, and it was related to the integration. So I asked him, like, what questions we have. So he was finding it hard to write down the questions. So I told him, okay, write this,
Mhm.
write this, write this, write this, and immediately he was like, how come, Shipra, you know about it, right? How can I as a BA know about it? Whatever you know, how I can know about? Is there some website I can go to? Is there a way to learn
Mhm.
these things, right? So
Mhm.
I told him there is no other way to learn these things, or to know how to ask the right questions, except learning on the job, right? So the more you
Very true.
converse with the people. So I told him that now, because I have given you these questions, so next time whenever you are working on a similar requirement, you know what questions to ask, right? So even I
Mm-hmm.
learned it that way, that someone told me, okay, what will happen when this will happen, what will happen when this will happen, right? So during the conversations, I pick up things and I learn and I try to remember them, right? So that next whenever the next opportunity come, whenever a next similar story come, of course we won't be having same stories, but we can
Mm-hmm.
definitely have similar stories. So whenever the next similar story will come, I'll know what questions to ask, right? Even to the technical team, or I can, even if technical team member is not around, I can at least jot down the queries which technical team is going to ask to the client, right? I'm still in a position to do that, even if it's technical in nature. So yeah, it's all a learning, and the most of the learning is on the job. You can't find a website which will tell you, okay, for a technical,
Mm-hmm.
so and so kind of a story, these are the questions you are going to ask. Even AI can't help you there, right? It's,
Yeah, and
it's all
it
experience.
was correctly said that it's like, learning on job, and like what I also understand that uh, if the product is like, enough mature, or if there is an opportunity to enter in any project when it's already existing and some work is being done, then it's much easier, because then you can anytime go in the product backlog and understand the nature of completed stories, how they were taken care of, and that gives a better idea. And if we get an opportunity to be there right from the initiation, then you can, uh, I mean, you are in the position to set some rules.
Definitely, definitely. So just to close off the topic, right? Because the session is getting
Yes,
recorded. So
yes.
we talked about three types of technical stories, right? The first type we talked about is a technical research or a spike. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Second, we talked about downstream integration, where we are sending data from one side to another system. So that's again technical in nature, right? Third thing we talked about is integration, where there's a two-way communication between two systems, and we are noting down the triggers and the mappings and maybe the connections and all.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth kind of story, technical story, could be a technical depth kind of a story. So, for example, we did something, and behind the scenes, technical team was supposed to do something which they didn't do. So that thing becomes a technical depth. They have to do it at some point in time, just because they're kind of postponing it for later. So that is again a technical story which BA might not be able to suggest, or BA might not be able to even phantom that, okay, they didn't do did this, right? So for example, they introduced a field and they were supposed to migrate data from one system, from one field to another field, or they were supposed to correct the behind the scenes mappings, but they didn't did it. They just introduced the field and they left the data migration. So that becomes a technical debt. BA, as a BA, I will not be aware of it, that they have left it out. But technical team will then have to go in and note it down as a technical depth story, and say that we'll work on it when we can, and depending on the project planning and so on and so forth. So that's another kind of technical story. Data migration, we have talked about data mappings. An element of it is data migration as well, wherein we are moving from one system to another system, and we have to do the mappings. Very much similar to integration, but the scope is much more. And data migration will also comprise of analyzing the data and understanding, what needs to go and what doesn't needs to go, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The data
Yes.
migration again, is kind of a technical story. One more type that comes to mind is architecture or design kind of a story, where I'm starting a system from scratch. There is no existing product which I'll be working on. Then
Mm-hmm.
I at that stage I might write some technical stories, to just attach my solution approach document, or to work on solution approach. So those kind of technical design stories can be there. And last but not the least are my non-functional requirements. So non-functional requirements most of the time goes into the technical realm, and m- if I do this, I should get the results in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Basically, the
Yeah.
performance or the scalability or the maintainability, and this will be my system downtime. So all these requirements are technical in nature. So if they are logged, they are logged as technical user stories. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thanks,
So
Chitra. I mean, that was a great summarization. I was busy taking points. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
Thanks, Supriya. Thanks for joining the call. I was thinking that we might not be able to conclude or progress on this call, but thanks to you, we had a very nice discussion, and we are closing off this topic. So
Yeah,
thanks for
sure.
joining in. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye bye.